Reviews. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds Episode 3 Review, Ghosts of Illyria. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds Episode 3 is the best episode of the series yet, full of everything that makes the franchise special. The following contains Star Trek, Strange New Worlds spoilers. Star Trek, Strange New Worlds Episode 3. 3 episodes of Star Trek, Strange New Worlds down. 3 episodes that have essentially hit it out of the park. I'm afraid I'm going to start sounding like a broken record here fairly quickly, but this show is simply delightful from start to finish, and its character work is as deft and entertaining as its standalone adventures are fun to watch. This week's installment finds the Enterprise crew investigating the site of an abandoned Illyrian colony, as part of a research attempt to find out what happened to them before they all vanished. Illyrians have a fraught history with the Federation, thanks to their history of genetically altering themselves in ways the organization forbids in the wake of the Eugenics Wars, and little is known about them, or what became of this particular group of colonists. The planet is frequently swept by iron storms, which renders extensive trips to the surface impossible and can be potentially life-threatening to organic life forms. That this is obviously where Pike and Spock get trapped should be a no-brainer to anyone who is even at least passingly familiar with this franchise. But what is a pleasant surprise is that because of this, they're actually absent from the bulk of the episode, allowing us to spend most of our time with the main Enterprise crew we're least familiar with: Una, M'Benga, Chapel, and Lion. Though Spock definitely still gets the line of the episode with "I'm arming us with knowledge" as he responds to an attack from an unknown and seemingly deadly energy creature, calmly continuing to read a scroll. Goodness, but Ethan Peck is a gem. Read more TV Star Trek, Strange New Worlds Episode 2 Review, Children of the Comet TV Star Trek, Strange New Worlds Episode 2 Easter Eggs and Reference Guide. Ghosts of Illyria is a perfect example of how this incarnation of Star Trek is more than capable of telling rich, character-focused stories right alongside close-ended adventures of the week. The fight against a virus that causes those infected to crave light so badly they will do literally anything to get more of it. From ripping out electrical fixtures to trying to open the warp core in order to bask in its radioactive glow is the primary problem for the Enterprise crew to solve. But it's only about maybe the third most exciting thing going on this show this week. Though, admittedly, it does provide us with some excellent horror-tinged moments along the way. Where last week's installment was largely a horror-focused episode, Ghosts of Illyria is probably best categorized as a story about Number One, though it touches on many larger themes and topics. She's the character that gets the opening and closing voiceovers, and it's the secrets she's been keeping that provide the hour's most dramatic revelations. Given that we knew comparatively little about the Enterprise's female first officer prior to this series, the idea that Strange New Worlds would be particularly eager to flesh out her character makes a lot of sense. I'm not sure that any of us expected that she would be revealed as an alien essentially passing for human just so she could serve in Starfleet, but given her ridiculous work ethic and desire to prove herself, it makes a bizarre kind of sense. And it certainly explains how she's so good at so many things. Though Illyrians have appeared in the Star Trek universe previously, they haven't been the focus of an especially huge story. The idea that they've been forbidden Federation membership because of their interest in genetic modifications makes a ton of sense given the fact that Strange New Worlds isn't that far removed, timeline-wise, from the Eugenics Wars and the defeat of Khan and his augments. And the sentiment isn't something that I think Federation and/or Starfleet are necessarily super proud of. Pike certainly isn't, it would seem, but the lingering distrust of the race is very real and apparently quite widespread. Una gets plenty of opportunities to be a complete badass this week though, from offering up her most closely guarded secret, her literal blood, and the rest of her career to try and save her crewmates. Not to mention stunning Hemmer and carrying him back to sickbay and then physically fighting Lion, before either of them can do something stupid like open the warp core or transport a piece of Hetman 9 S core onto the ship. But perhaps the most heart-rending moment of the hour comes after number 1 confesses her year's worth of lies to Pike, who predictably doesn't care even the slightest bit and essentially promises to protect her if and when Starfleet eventually finds out. Her almost giddy relief is such that one has to wonder if Una has ever truly had anyone accept her for herself before, or tell her that she has worth for precisely what and who she is. Sure, she doesn't quite trust it, and her understandable angst about how Pike or the rest of the Enterprise crew might have reacted had she not also essentially been the outer space version of a model minority is something that I desperately hope this series gets a chance to address again at a later point. And it's a subplot that's certainly worth thinking about and looking at more closely. But truly, I just adore her and Pike's friendship, with its firm trust, obvious love, and utter lack of sexual tension, and I hope that more shows take a lesson from this, is what I'm saying. Number 1 isn't the only main member of the Strange New Worlds crew dealing with long-held secrets and emotional damage though. Surprise! Gdehgbcfhbc is responsible for the medical transporter malfunction that allowed the virus onto the ship in the well, he's hiding his dying young daughter in the transporter's pattern buffer, essentially holding her in stasis in order to keep her disease from advancing while he searches for a cure amongst the stars. And then there's Lion, who's feeling some kind of way about the secret Suna's been keeping about her identity. Get the best of Dan of Geek delivered right to your inbox. But after essentially facing years' worth of persecution and abuse herself simply for being so obviously connected to the most famous augment of all, her hatred of those who genetically alter themselves is certainly understandable, if not entirely fair. And though it seems as though the two women have essentially patched things up by the end of the hour, I doubt this is the last time we'll hear about her past both with her and otherwise. I'm very much looking forward to the inevitable Lion episode, is what I'm saying. But for the moment, I'm content to just enjoy this ride. Written by Lacey Barr. Lacey Barr is a digital producer by day, but a television enthusiast pretty much all the time. Her writing has been featured in Paste Magazine, Collider. Read more from Lacey Barr. Features: Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Episode 3, Easter Eggs and Reference Guide. In Ghosts of Illyria, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Episode 3 goes hard on augments, old-school sound effects, and a surprising number of DS9 references. This article contains Star Trek: Strange New Worlds spoilers. Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Episode 3. Like the classic episodes The Naked Time or The Deadly Years, Strange New Worlds has entered into Star Trek storytelling mode, all about a weird alien virus sweeping the ship. From the Next Generation to Deep Space Nine and beyond, every Trek show needs an episode like this, and in Ghosts of Illyria, we get a great one. When a virus that's transmitted by light starts to make everyone lose it, it's up to number one to sort everything out. Ghosts of Illyria is, arguably, the first big episode to feature Rebecca Raminzunachan Riley as the focus of the story. And as such, we get a lot of references to previous moments in Trek canon, many of which directly connect to her backstory, and Lion's backstory, too. Here's every big Easter egg and reference we caught in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds Episode 3, Ghosts of Illyria. Illyrians. The focus of the episode finds the Enterprise trying to find out what happened to a colony of Illyrians. Although a seemingly unrelated alien race called Illyrians appeared in a 2004 episode of Enterprise called Damage, this group of Illyrians, of which Una is a secret member, the focus of the episode finds the Enterprise trying to. This group of Illyrians, of which Una is a secret member, is actually a composite of Illyrians mentioned throughout a number of Star Trek novels. Starting in the 1988 book Vulcan's Glory, written by original series powerhouse D.C. Fontana, it was established that number one was an Illyrian. Several novelists ran with this concept, which existed outside of actual canon, including David Mack's first Star Trek Discovery novel, Desperate Hours, which featured the crews of the Shenzhou and the Enterprise teaming up before Discovery Season 2 and before Anson Mount, Ethan Peck, and Rebecca Ramin had even been cast. The point is, from 1989 to 2017, Star Trek books have been trying to make number one's status as an Illyrian a thing. And now, it is actually canon. With a wrinkle: before, in all of those novels, being an Illyrian didn't carry this kind of stigma. Iron Storm. Although nobody is accidentally sent to the Mirror Universe in this episode, an Iron Storm was the reason why Kirk, Scotty, Uhura, and Bones were sent to the Mirror Universe in the TOS episode. Mirror, Mirror. And an Iron Storm was also why Captain Lorca crossed over from the Mirror Universe in Discovery Season 1. Number one rips her shirt. The moment of number one dramatically ripping her uniform tunic could reference several episodes of the original series in which Kirk's tunic is ripped, seemingly just for the hell of it. Like Kirk, number one gets her tunic fixed pretty quickly. It's totally back to normal in the next scene. Eugenics Wars and Kaan. Una and Lion talk a lot about the history of genetic modification, and why it's banned throughout the Federation. Una says, "Thanks to the Eugenics Wars, I bet you know all about that period in history." And Lion says, "You don't grow up with a bioengineered mass murderer as your ancestor and not develop a thick skin." Get the best of Den of Geek delivered right to your inbox. There's a lot going on here. This is the first full confirmation that Lion is related to Khan. Una even says his full name. Second, both Una and Lion are very familiar with the history of the Eugenics Wars in a way that most people in Starfleet are not. Notice this conversation takes place in private, and Spock is not around. This helps preserve canon, because in the TOS classic Space Seed, Spock makes a point of telling everyone that the official records of the Eugenics Wars were unclear. So, why do Una and Lion know so much about it? Easy. Both have information that is well outside of Starfleet historical records, and both have a personal stake in said history because of their backgrounds. Although Lion herself is not a genetic augment, she's a descendant of one. Meanwhile, Una is genetically engineered, which would also explain why she knows so much about that aspect of Earth's history. We wrote more about all the ways Star Trek has returned to the Eugenics Wars and their shifting place in Trek canon here. La'an and the Augments. Skipping ahead a bit to La'an and Number One's fight later in the episode, La'an furiously tells Number One that children teased her and called her an augment when she was younger. This is a retroactive designation for the genetically engineered Supermen, of which Khan was a member. The term augment comes from the Enterprise Story 3 episode arc, which includes Borderland, Cold Station 12, and the Augments. But you really have to wonder exactly how La'an's ancestry works. Because she literally has Khan's exact last name. Is she a direct descendant? If so, how does that work? Did someone use some of Khan's DNA, and then that person eventually had a conventional family, which, over the centuries, resulted in La'an? Infamously, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan featured a baby living with Khan and his followers on Alpha-V. Of course, that film takes place well after Strange New Worlds. But it's still fun to think that the idea of Khan's children has been floating around for a while. Number One and La'an's Space Seed fight. Just as Kirk fought Khan in main engineering in Space Seed, during a potential overload of the warp engines, Una and La'an fight in main engineering much in the same way. Even the colors of their uniforms match. This difference, of course, is that Number One, the person who has not lost their mind, is the one with the genetically enhanced super strength. There's even a little musical cue that sounds a bit like the classic Toes fight music. Uhura is rocking a Lower Decks style bunk. The series Star Trek, Lower Decks clearly established that junior officers and cadets not only have roommates, but often have tiny bunks which can be sealed off. Uhura having roommates on the Enterprise also references Cadet Tilly in Discovery, being roommates with Michael Burnham. And although this has been the case since the first episode of SNW, Cadet Uhura's badge is basically the same as Tilly's cadet badge from Discovery Season 1. Spock's blood and location of the carotid artery. When Spock gets a cut, Pike mentions that it's a good thing it didn't hit Spock's carotid. But Spock points out that's not where his carotid artery actually is. Spock having green blood was established pretty early on in TOS, in that first aired episode, The Man Trap. The mention of the carotid artery could also be a reference to Space Seed. In that episode, Bones jokingly tells Khan that the fastest way to kill him would be the carotid artery. A skull behind M'Benga in sickbay. Speaking of Bones in TOS, in several shots in this episode, we see a random skull sitting behind M'Benga in sickbay. Bones had one in nearly the exact same place. Daedalus-class starship silhouette.
In the conference room, it seems like we're seeing the outline of a Daedalus-class starship behind Number One. You can tell because this model painting outline has a spherical primary hull instead of the more familiar saucer section. Although this class of starship was referenced in the Next Generation episode, Power Play, it was only retroactively depicted as a model in Sisko's Ready Room in Deep Space Nine. The USS Horizon, the ship that predated the Enterprise and a piece of the action, was thought to have been a Daedalus-class starship. Essentially, these ships were around sometime after the era of Archer but before the disco SNWTOS era of the mid-23rd century. Phaser on stun classic sound effect. When Number One stuns Hammer, the phaser's stunning sound effect is just like from several episodes of the original series. M'Benga references Star Trek Enterprise. When Mbanga sympathizes with number 1 about her hidden heritage, he says that once humans went into space we found new bigotries, human and Vulcan blood. Now it's human and Illyrians. This seems to reference the events of Star Trek Enterprise, specifically the episodes Terra Prime and Demons, in which a xenophobic group of humans tries to create hysteria by creating a Vulcan-human hybrid baby. This comment could also suggest that Illyrians even before genetic enhancement are not human. Maybe Illyrians are like reverse genesis devices. Una makes a huge point later on at the end of the episode that Illyrians genetically modify themselves to adapt to planets. In another roundabout Wrath of Khan reference, this seems to make Illyrians like the opposite of the Genesis device. Instead of terraforming a planet to meet their needs, they transform themselves. A person in the pattern buffer. We learn in this episode that Dr. Mbanga is keeping his critically ill daughter in the transporter's pattern buffer, indefinitely. This trick was first seen in Trek in the TNG episode, Relics, in which Scotty stored himself in the buffer for over 70 years. Number 1 references Deep Space Nine twice. Number 1's confession to Pike about her hidden status as someone who is genetically enhanced echoes Dr. Bashir revealing the same thing to Captain Sisko in the DS9 episode Drive. Bashir, I presume. And this episode ends with number 1 deleting her log entry, just like Sisko did in the DS9 episode, In the Pale Moonlight. Written by Ryan Britt. Ryan Britt is a longtime contributor to Den of Geek. He is the author of the forthcoming book Phasers on Stun. How the Making and Remaking. Read more from Ryan Britt.